it to you guys tomorrow. So let me make sure that my screen is showing up. There we go. And my webcam as well, because as usual, I'm going to be holding up things, cards and so on. So what I did here is I logged into my account and I went into the material section. There I went into Max Words, and remember that for every module of Max Words, that's Clover, spelling rules, prefixes and suffixes, Latin roots, and Greek roots, you're going to use the same lesson plan. What you're going to do is just, if relevant or when relevant, just change the wording a little bit. Sometimes you're talking about sounds, sometimes you're talking about syllables, sometimes you're talking about roots, but the steps that you'll need to follow are the same. What's going to change is slightly the wording that you use to present things to your students. So I'll go ahead and show you two templates or two basic files that you should always keep handy. Those are the first two files that appear on my screen right now. The one that you're probably used to is this second one that says lesson plan, steps, instructions, and sample for vowel teams. You see it's downloaded here to my computer. I'm going to pull it up so you can see it. All right. So here we have the 7 steps that should be followed in this multi-syllabic words lesson plan. Once again, this same lesson plan is the one that you would use for any of the 5 modules in Max Words. You'll have visual, auditory, and tactile drills as usual. This is based on the Orton-Gillingham method, so you'll always have those 3 components in some form or another. And then at the bottom of this page, I've added additional exercises, just ideas of extra activities or drills that you can incorporate into your lesson to kind of expand on it a little bit more and make it easier for your students to have more drill and practice. So the first page of this document is just the step-by-step and the suggestions of additional exercises. The following page starts with a template that is empty. It has a bunch of empty boxes. Those boxes are the ones that you would fill in with the information that you're delivering in this particular lesson. Remember, these lessons are your script. This is what you write for yourself to read off of for your students. So if you're going to dictate words, you're going to just write the words that later on you're going to be reading off to your students. So that's why you have a lot of empty boxes here. I'll keep scrolling down. We'll go over these step by step together. I just want to show you what the document in itself has. And then eventually I'll get to this, which is the same template that I just scrolled through, but this time the boxes are already filled in. So this is what a lesson plan looks like once the teacher already wrote it out. This is what you would print out. This is what you would have in front of you while you're delivering the lesson for your student. That is your script. So what I want to do is write one of these scripts with you so you understand the flow of it. And then I'll go through all the sections of Clover showing you how you would fill the boxes for each of those sections. So this is the first file. I'm actually not going to use this one. I'm going to close it out. But just so you know, that's the second file on the list, which has the steps, an empty template, and a sample lesson plan specifically for vowel teams. The template that I'm going to use is the first one on this list. It's pretty much the same thing with the empty boxes. I just made it a little bit easier. I changed the formatting a little bit to make it easier to write in it, to edit it. So you'll see it's the same 7 steps. I just make the boxes a little bit bigger. It's pretty much just visual things. But this is the one that I want to go over with you guys. So before I start filling in the information, I know that I'm going to work with module 1 of Max Words, and that is Clover. I know that Clover stands for different syllable types and syllable division rules. So how do I write the lesson? Where do I get the information that I need in order to fill in these boxes? The easiest way is to go into your account, go to your MyMax, meaning switch over to where you can see your account, but as a student, and you can navigate every section, including Clover in MaxWords. And what I did in order to do my cards, in order to do my lessons, is I just clicked through every screen pretty much and took my examples from there, took the content from there. If you find yourself in a situation where, for example, the skills or the words that are used on the software are too hard for your students, you might not want to use those examples and just find examples elsewhere where you can add easier words. Or the opposite, maybe the words on the software are too easy and you want to challenge your students a little bit more, still going over basic skills, but with a higher vocabulary level, then also you can take examples from different places. What I did and what I'll do today is based on what's found in the software already. So in order to get to Clover, I'll just remind you how you can get from your teacher site to any part of the student site, and that's by clicking on this orange button on the top right that says go to MyMax. That takes me to my account viewed as a student. And as I said, we're doing MaxWords. The modules are all here. Clover is the first one, and that's the one that I'm dealing with, but I'll emphasize and say this once again. The lesson plan that we're about to fill out, the lesson template that I showed you, I would use with any of the 5 modules that are on my screen right now. So let me go into Clover. And as you know, each of the letters in the word Clover stands for a different type of syllable. C is closed syllables. L is consonant LE, it's a final syllable. O is open syllables. V is vowel teams. E is vowel consonant E or silent E, magic E. And R is R-controlled syllables or R-controlled sounds. So I'll go over all of them. I'll take first the closed syllables as an example. And when I hit start now, you'll see that I'll start seeing definitions, examples. This is where I'm saying that I get the information from. So I see that closed syllables always have a short vowel sound, and that vowel is surrounded by one or more consonants. The consonant is like a gate closing in that vowel. And I see examples: cat, lead, pet, rod, tin, fun. All of those short vowels surrounded by consonants. So before I move on from this screen, if I go back to my template, I would put my teacher, the date. The lesson that I'm going over right now is in MaxWords, Clover, and specifically closed syllables. So this will be the title of my lesson. Now let's go step by step. The first step is the visual drill. I'll just read what it says and then explain it or adapt it to what we're doing right now, which is closed syllables. The teacher shows the skill, rule, or syllable, in this case, syllable, and its explanation. The teacher has index cards which have the name of the skill or rule in the front, and the definition in the back. In my case, I just did a separate card because it bled through. So this is the definition. The idea is that you introduce the syllable type and its definition to the students by visually holding something up in front of them, and then they'll repeat it back to you. I recommend that you have your students make their own index cards so that they have their own deck that they can review with. So for the visual drill, I'm going to have actually multiple cards. I'm going to have one that has the name of the rule, of the syllable, sorry. In the back or in a second card, I would have the definition of what that rule is. So closed syllables have a short vowel surrounded by consonants. So I worded things a little bit different, but it's the same information that I saw on the software. And then I have cards that show me example words, which I also took from there. I used a different color for the vowels. That's up to you if you choose to do it that way. But on the visual drill, you're going to have multiple cards, not only presenting the syllable and its examples, but also the syllable division rule. So in this case, all the boxes that you see on my screen right now, all of those are either the definition of the syllable type or examples. So you would just type it in there, what you would write on your actual cards. So I went further into the software. Let me show you where. I took this screen to write my syllable type, the definition of the syllable type, and a couple of example words, right? Now, if I keep moving on, I'll say, okay, got it. That's where I'll see the syllable division rule. I'll see that when two or more consonants stand between two vowels, the division is between the consonants. So the division will be, let me find the relevant card, vowel, consonant, split, consonant, vowel. So this is kind of the formula that I need to work with when I'm dealing with a closed syllable here and a closed syllable there. So when I have two closed syllables next to each other, how do I recognize a closed syllable? Because I know that there's short vowels surrounded by consonants. So when I know that there's two next to each other, if I need to split that word into syllables, I know that the division or the split will be between the consonants that separate those short vowels. So I took the words that were on the screen and I just made it so. Now, like I said, there's going to be additional cards with examples that you're going to also use for that first step of the lesson plan, the visual drill. Some of my cards look like this. Lid, and I coded the sound. So I have consonant, vowel, consonant, short vowel for that matter. So I have a short vowel surrounded by consonants. I know that this is a closed syllable. Now I have the word catnip. That A is a short A surrounded by consonants. That's a short closed syllable. Nip, short I surrounded by consonants. That's another closed syllable. And I said that when I had closed syllables standing next to each other, this is where I do the split between the consonants that separate the vowels. So in this case, it would be right here, catnip. If you clap it out, catnip, you get the same result. But there is rules. There's always exceptions to rules, as we already discussed on one of my latest webinars. But for most of the syllabication exercises that you'll encounter, there is a rule. And it all has to do with what sounds you're dealing with, what type of syllables you're dealing with. So again, in the case of closed syllables that are next to each other, the split will be between the consonants that separate the short vowels. For example, napkin. If I clap it out, I have napkin. Short vowel surrounded by consonants, short vowel surrounded by consonants. The split is between the consonants that are separating those vowels. Public. I like a lot of the folding and unfolding. Remember, all tactile components really help the students internalize and kind of get that information. It gets stick in their brain. Another format that I present index cards on is like this. I write the word, I code it, and then I ask the students to split it. I coded it so I know that the split goes between the consonants that separate those vowels. So it would be between the L and the V. This one follows the same format. Then I have some where I just show them the word and ask them to split it, ask them to fold it, identify the sounds, code it, and then tell me the answer. Another format is I give them the word already split, and then I ask them, why did I split it that way? Because you split it between the consonants that separate the vowels. So there's different ways in which I present the examples. Here I coded them. Here I didn't code it. Here I just went ahead and split it. So I present it in different ways to make sure the students are really understanding how to do it. If I just show them this, they might just remember that it's kind of always in the middle. Or if I just show them this, then they might just remember that it's always between the C's. So that's why it's important to present in many different ways to make sure that they're answering correctly because they're understanding the role, not because they're just memorizing some sort of easy thing that they saw a pattern on. So that's my visual cards. All of this little deck that I just went through is my visual cards for the closed syllables. Meaning, all of these little cards that are on my screen, these are the words or these are the definitions that would be filling out those boxes. Now let me move on to step 2. And that's the auditory tactile drill. Here, the students trace letters of the dictated word in salt or sand, or they write the letters on paper. Again, if you've been through my trainings before, you're going to see that I repeat myself quite a bit, but I know that for some it's their first training. So I'm going over some basics. Whenever you have a tactile exercise, whether on Max Phonics or on Max Words, we usually talk about a plate or a tray of sand or rice or anything that is something that the student can touch with their finger and it moves as they're tracing those letters. They feel that texture. Because again, like I just said, the tactile components really help the students kind of tie in all the information that they need to tie in their brain. So for the auditory tactile drill, you're going to select a few words like the ones that I used for my cards right here, and you're going to dictate them to the students. The students are at this point just tracing those letters. So you can do a colored paper plate with salt. You can do a colored paper plate with rice. It's less messy than salt or sand. You can do a Ziploc bag with paint in it. Whatever it is that I can run my fingers through and feel it. Construction paper, whatever it might be. So the idea is that I'm going to take 5 to 10 words usually. The difficulty of those words or the amount of those words, once again, will depend on the students that you're dealing with. If you can push them to 10, then push them to 10. If you feel that they can only deal with 5 at a time, then just do 5 at a time. But in order to fill in that little box, which will be which words I'm reading out to the students, I'll just, once again, keep going through the program with my account, my teacher account. And here I have some examples that I could take: trumpet, selfish, mental, dentist. And here I have more examples. So what I would do, let's say that I have these. I would write happen, attic, channel, public, contest, and that's it. I want five words to dictate to my students for them to trace. So remember, this is my script. I would tell my students, and you can see that on the right-hand side, what you need to say or what you need to do. And I would say, write the word happen, write the word attic, write the word channel, write the word public, or trace the word contest. I keep saying that this lesson plan you can use with any module. What you're going to need to do sometimes is change the verbiage a little bit. So sometimes I say trace, sometimes I say write, sometimes I say how do you spell this, or write the letters that make this particular sound if I was working with vowel teams. So that's what I meant by the fact that you're going to use the same lesson plan, but you're going to adapt it to whatever module that you're working with. What I mean by adapting it is just changing those words here and there to make the lesson plan make sense with the skill that you're working with at this particular time. So that's step 2. Then we get to step 3, which is the sound blending. The students tap on alpha chips. These are the alpha chips. If you have them, if you don't, it's not the end of the world. Especially now, if you did have them, you probably have them at the school. You can make your own. I don't know where I put them now. If you saw my desk, it's really messy. But I just took index cards and cut them in 3. And then I just wrote letters on each. And that's what I use as my deck of cards or as my deck of chips to blend sounds together or form words together. You don't have to have the official alpha chips. You can make your own, or you can have your students make their own at home. But the idea here is that we're going to use those alpha chips or those letter cards to form words and blend them and sound them out. In this case, blending the syllables into words. So I have here an exercise that I did for this type of drill. Here, once again, I would just, in the box, I would just write the words that I'm going to tell the students to form. And this is an extra exercise that I came up with that you could use for this specific step, the sound blending. So I have first syllables here, and I have second syllables there. And they make up words. Sometimes you can make more than one word with a particular syllable. Sometimes you cannot, up to you how you make this deck. But the idea is that I sound out and blend. So I say as a syllable, not as individual sounds. So as a syllable, I would do contrast, contrast. Here, this is not a real word, but since I am sounding out all of these letters within the syllable, I could, in theory, read it. I could say dentrast. Doesn't make sense, it's not a word. But because it's short vowels and consonants, I am able to read it by just following the basic phonics rules. Dentist, dentist. Another way in which I can present this exercise is scroll through the syllables until you find a word and then sound it out and blend it. So that's not a real word. That's not a real word. Oh, I found a real word. So I'll sound it out and blend. Napkin, napkin. Magnet, magnet. So if you do this, you would write down all the words that you're making up with these syllables, and then you can tell the student, find the word velvet, and they need to scroll through until they find the vel and vet, velvet, velvet. So you can do it this way. You can make, like I said, take index cards, regular index cards, cut them up, and with Sharpies, just write one syllable and another syllable. Or if you want to do letter by letter, you might want to do that. But what I mean is that you can come up with these extra materials that you use on your exercises that you come up with or that you incorporate into the lesson. So for step 3, again, I tap and sound out and blend. Then you have step 4, which is the fluency. As you know, on every section of the phonics program and every section of the Max Sports program, there is always fluency drills. Those are those screens where you have a bunch of words and a timer with 60 seconds or 1 minute, and you have to click on it and it starts counting down. The idea is that we want the students to read as many words as possible in those 60 seconds. Many times teachers reach out to me and say, oh, my student read all the words in 15 seconds and they had to stay on that screen until the timer ended. That's because you weren't doing the exercise correctly. What we're testing for is how many words can the student read correctly within those 60 minutes. 60 seconds, sorry, not 60 minutes. They're not going to stop reading for those 60 seconds. So if they read all of the words in the screen and they still have time on the clock, they'll start over again from the top. Same words over and over and over again. At the end of those 60 seconds, what I'll do is I'll take this part of my lesson and I have my student, Malia, let's say, and I timed her for 60 seconds. She read 35 words, but 3 of them she mispronounced. 2 of them I had her skip because she was taking too long. So I'm going to deduct those errors or those things that we skipped through from the total amount that she read. So if she read 35, made mistakes on a total of 5, I'm going to deduct those 5, and I'm going to give her a score of 30. That's what I'll write here, 30 WPM. That's words per minute. The same information, by the way, you can also enter on your online reports. if your students are using Clover, specifically closed syllables, on their own accounts, when they finish every section, the scores will be automatically put into the reports. But the fluency, as you know, it's not tracked by the system. You need to assess it with the student. So once you do, by timing them and keeping count of how many words they read correctly, how many words they read incorrectly, you can enter this on the online reports as well. There is a little text box titled WPM, words per minute, and that's where you can enter it to keep it, to keep record of it online as well. So then I would have my student Steve, who read 15 words per minute, and so on. If you need to add boxes, remember this is a simple Word document. You can add things, remove things as you will. Then we move on to step 5, and that is the spelling drill when it comes to words or word dictation. So we're going to choose 10 words that we used in this lesson, maybe words that we already used, maybe new words. Maybe I want to use this opportunity to expand on vocabulary as well. So I'm going to use 10 words that relate to whatever I'm teaching in this lesson, of course. So in this case, I would use 10 words with closed syllables. And I'm going to dictate them to my students. This time, I do want them to write them down. So I could use the same words that I was using in previous steps, for example, steps 3 or step 2. But remember that it's different drills on each of those steps, even if I was using the same words. On step 2, I want them to trace the letters with their fingers. On step 3, they're going to be tapping and blending. On step 5, that's when they're going to be actually writing it with their pencil. Then we get to step 6, which is a sentence dictation. I usually put 5 to 10, and that's for everything. It's always 5 to 10 words, 5 to 10 sentences, 5 to 10 everything is what I suggest you add on each lesson. So in this case, for the sentences, I would try to use, once again, words that have closed syllables. We're all trying to reinforce with each coming step, we're trying to reinforce where we're building from, what we started with. So initially, I just told you what closed syllables are. Then I showed you one syllable words. Then I showed you multisyllabic words. Then I showed you how to split those into syllables. Now I want you to trace them. Then I want you to sound them out. Then I want you to write it. So you see that it's like a step-by-step evolution to get to reading sentences and writing sentences. So at this point on step 6, I suggest always coming up with 5 sentences of your own, and then have the students come up with an additional 3 or an additional 5. Something that you might want to do, and it's part of the suggested additional exercises that I mentioned on the very first file that I was scrolling through. It's do your sentences with words that you know that your students are familiar with. So it's going to be easier for them to hear them, understand them, identify them, and write them down. And then choose 3 words, 5 words that you know are going to be new vocabulary or they are a little bit higher in difficulty, and have the students come up with their own sentence. Maybe have them look on the dictionary for a definition, and then based on that, come up with an original sentence. But my point being that you can always take the basis of what the lesson plan gives you, but make it your own. Add things, remove things, reword things, it's fine. All you want to hit is really the visual, tactile, and auditory drills. There's not going to be too much practice. In fact, the more practice, the better. So if you can switch things around, twist them a little way, make them your own, by all means do. Just take this as the basic sample that you can work off of. Then I have step 7, which is the reading. And on the original template, it tells you that you should just choose a chapter on max reading and have the students read them, and then answer the questions and write the summaries and so on. What happens is that sometimes it's hard to know which specific chapter to go to. Not only that, but maybe your students are working in Clover, but they're on kindergarten level on the reading. So you can't really find a correlation between closed syllables and a particular chapter that reinforces closed syllables. Therefore, my recommendation when you get to this last step of the lesson is make up your own story, or have the students come up with their own story. Because that way, you once again are adding a further step, another step, but taking your lesson a little bit further and having them exercise a little bit with a new type of exercise. Take the sentences that I gave you, take the words that we went over, and come up with a short story, 3 sentences, 5 sentences, and then the students can read that. That's my suggestion. If you do prefer to have them go to max reading, but by all means, I'm just letting you know that there won't be that one-to-one correlation of, okay, these stories reinforce the closed syllable specifically. So you might struggle with that, and that's why you might want to just come up with a little story yourself. So that's how I would fill in all these empty lines or all these empty boxes. What I do is I log into my account as a teacher and I start clicking through the pages to fill this in. If I need extra examples, there's always the internet where I could find things. Or remember that when you go to your dashboard, I'll go back to the material section for Max Words. You'll see here that for Module 1, there are a few supporting materials, additional worksheets, the Fluency table of words if you want to print them out, the visual cards. I'll show you what those look like. Here. So here, this is the basics of what you could use to build your lesson plan, your visual cards for each of the syllable types that appear in Clover. So I took this file, reworded things a little bit, started putting them here, and then I made additional cards for the syllable division rule and for multisyllabic words. But again, you have a good starting point here with the resources that are on the material section, and then you can always complement with going to your account and clicking through. Lori, you asked, how did I get to those cards? So let me just do a review of the materials because I know that there's a lot, so it's easy to get lost. On your dashboard, under material section, the first thing that you want to look for is what program am I working with? In this case, we're working with Max Words, so that's what I clicked on. Then, the first few files, you'll see that it's lesson plans. One is the easy template that I was just scrolling through. The other one is the one that has the steps, the instructions, and the sample. This that I'm about to open is a file that I uploaded last week, I want to say, where you have lesson plans that are already built in from teachers that have submitted them to us. So you have multiple examples, multiple sentences if you wanted to take, examples from others. So you have all sorts of lesson plans here. And those are just the first 3 files on the list. Then for every module, you'll find more or less some supporting materials, some extra worksheets, some additional resources. So look at what's in parentheses. Clover is module 1. So all of these files that say module 1 have to do with Clover. I'll find something to help me out with Clover. The one that I specifically clicked on, Lori, is this one called Module 1 Clover Visual Cards. And it's that Word document that opened up. I think I closed it. Let me open it again. Where did it go? There we go. And it's 6 pages. So one is for closed syllable, then consonant LE, then open, vowel teams, silent E, and R control. Those are the 6 sections of Clover. So what I want to do at this point is just go through all my cards for each of those 6 syllable types. So again, I took this file that said visual cards, wrote my cards in my own words. I changed things here and there. And then I did go through the program itself to add more, to add the syllable division rule, to add multisyllabic words when relevant. So on the visual cards is some of what I did, but I expanded on it and so should you, as you're building your lesson plan and your index cards, again, try to put as much drill and practice, as many examples as you can. So let me go here to illustrate where I'm going. Once again, max words, Clover. I showed you my cards for the C, closed syllables, and I showed you my little blending, syllable blending exercise. That's one. Then we have consonant LE. The consonant LE is a final syllable ending with the letters LE. The only vowel in it is the E, which is silent, by the way. The program, by the way, does have, oh, actually, I'm reading it right now. It does have all of those things, like the E is silent and so on. I use my cards as kind of bullet points to remind me of the concept, but I always add things on it. For example, here, the only vowel is the E. I added just verbally, which is silent. You can write it out if you want to. I prefer to put less words and then explain with my words a little bit more. So we have consonant LE is a final syllable ending with LE, and the only vowel in it is the E. For example, apple. So this would be the final syllable ending in LE. Purple, this would be the consonant LE syllable, and I see that the word ends in the letters LE. The E is silent. Table. Remember how I showed that sometimes I code the sound, sometimes I don't, sometimes I give them the answer, sometimes I don't. So here I have table and I coded it, consonant, vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel. This is going to become useful when I get to the syllable division rule. Remember, it's kind of a formula that I made a card for. When I'm dealing with multisyllabic words, in the case of the consonant LE syllable, it's always going to be multisyllabic words because I know that the consonant LE is a final syllable, meaning there are previous syllables before it. So this is what my formula looks like. This would be the previous syllable, these dots. Then comes the split, and then the consonant LE. This C is not just the letter C. It stands for consonant, consonant LE. Candle. The word ends in LE, the E is silent. If I want to split that word into syllables, this is the format that I'm looking for. Consonant LE, the split is before that consonant. Consonant LE, the split is before that consonant. For this one, you can also, for this specific rule only, you can count 3 from the end of the word. So I count 1, 2, 3, split. 1, 2, 3, split. Trouble, trouble. Circle, 1, 2, 3, split. Or LE, that's the consonant. I know that the split is before the consonant, before that LE. So it's circle. Fable. This again is the other format of card that I show my students. It's already split. Why did I split it this way? Because one of two options. You count 3 from the end, 1, 2, 3, split, or you identify the consonant that is before the LE and you split before it. For my exercise here, I use all words that end on DLE, consonant LE, consonant D specifically. And I have middle, saddle, candle, fiddle, riddle. So again, you make little cards, little exercises, use your imagination to come up with more. So that's the consonant LE. The reason why I'm only showing you the cards and not the entire lesson is because this is really what you need as the basis. Everything else is using words to dictate to your students. Use the words to come up with sentences. So this is a very important part for you to know or be aware of, where I got it and how I got to have these cards. Which, by the way, I did one day that I was in an airport and my flight was delayed, and I happened to have Sharpies and index cards in my bag, and I just sat and did this. All right, then we move on to the O, that's open syllables. Open syllables end in a long vowel. For example, go, that's a one syllable word, and the O says its own name. The O makes its long sound. No, I coded it here, consonant vowel, that's a long vowel sound, O. Open. Here, I know that open syllables tell me about long vowel sounds. Not both these vowels have long vowel sounds, right? The O is long, the E is short. So now I'm starting to deal with multisyllabic words. And the open syllable would be the one that ends in a long vowel. So if I'm talking about this word, minus, the I is long, the U is short. If I know that the open syllable ends in a long vowel, I know that my is a syllable and nus is another syllable. Minus, because the split would be after the long vowel. That's what my formula says. So the reason why I need to identify the long vowel sound in the open syllable is because after it is where the split will go. So it's long vowel, split, next syllable. For example, baby. The A is long, so I'll do the split after it. Human. The U is long, so I'll do the split after it. Human. Human. Agent. The A is long, so I'll do the split there. Agent. And if I'm just looking at this, I have gent. That's a short vowel surrounded by consonants. So you start seeing how different syllable types start interacting with each other in the same word. This is an open syllable. If this is the split, my finger, this is the open syllable, this is a closed syllable. This is another example of two syllable types. Table, it's already split. So I have two rules that are being applied here. If I'm focusing on this, table, the A is long, so I know that I do the split after the long vowel. How about if I focus on this? I have a consonant LE, and I know that for those, I can either count 3 from the end, so I do 1, 2, 3 split, or I do the split before the consonant that is before that LE. Open syllable, consonant LE, table. For that, I also did my cards, pilot, navy, long vowel. So this side will always end in a long vowel. Pilot, navy, ivy, icon. See that flipping game? Now let's see the next one, the vowel teams. And this is a little bit different because when we get to vowel teams, there's no real syllable division rule. Whenever you have vowel teams within a word, a multisyllabic word, usually the other syllables are the ones that dictate how you're going to split it. But what we do in vowel teams, and if you've been through vowel teams, you know this, it's just exposure to different words that have those vowel sounds. Let me click into it so you see what I mean. There's a whole bunch of different vowel teams. Sometimes the same two letters make different sounds. So all I'm doing here is exposure. There's no rule to remember. Vowel teams, it's when two or more vowels are together or two or more letters that make a vowel sound are together. That's the introduction. Past that, it's just, let me give you examples of this sound. Let me give you examples of that sound. For vowel teams, by the way, you might want to do multiple lesson plans. That lesson plan with the 7 steps, you're not going to do 30-something sounds in one lesson. You might want to do all the long A sounds, all the long E sounds in a lesson, so you can kind of split it that way. But your cards will look like this. OA, as in soap, coat, toast. So this is the long O sound. Coast, foam. Another card would be OO, which has multiple sounds, depending on which word I'm reading it in. Look, this is like a sound. Look, tuck, wood, book, hood. And here I did in a different color all of the different sounds that are there on the screen right now and the example word. So IE as in peace, AY as in bay. Here I mix them up, but you can group them together with, based on that, groups, vowel teams that make the long A sound, long E sound, and then you're gonna have one of miscellaneous sounds. But just to reinforce on the vowel teams, what matters or what I'm going over is more exposure to different sounds. So the lesson plan is not going to look the same. Maybe I'm going to give up on some of the steps of sound blending, for example, because I'm not going to blend sounds here, but I might want to work on more word dictation because I want them to have a lot of words that they've seen this specific vowel team in, or I'm going to focus on the sentence part. So again, you're going to adapt the lesson plan to whatever you need to deliver in this lesson. So that's the V. Then we go to the E. E is the silent E, magic E. We call it here vowel consonant E. Let's see the cards for that. Vowel consonant E ends with a silent E, which makes the previous vowel long. Let's see what that means. We have here tape, silent E. The previous vowel is long. If I cover the E, I have tap. That is a closed syllable, short vowel surrounded by consonants. But that magic E, turn that into long. Tape, tap, tape. Game. Once again, I quote some cards. Game. Gam. Not a real word, but I can still decode it and read it. Gam. Game. Note. Nut. Note. Dine. Din. Dine. Cut. Cute. Jen. Jean. Rub. Robe. For this, I also have my little tap, tape, tub, tube, rip, ripe. You get the idea, right? And then I put just a few examples there. And then the last syllable type is the R, or sound type really. Is R controlled syllables or R controlled sounds. Pretty much that is when there is an R next to a vowel and it changes the way that that vowel sounds. For example, if I have a UR, this is not going to be a long U, this is not going to be a short U, it's an R controlled U. So you're going to have those for every vowel. Sometimes, like in the vowel teams, there's going to be more than one sound. For example, for the AR, here. I have 2 cards for AR. AR as in far, R, and AR as in parrot. That's more of an air. Air, R. See how they're different? Same letters, different sounds. So when it comes to the R controlled syllables, it's the same thing as vowel teams. All I want is exposure, exposure, exposure. When it comes to syllable division rule, usually the other syllables that are next to this type of sounds will determine where you do the split. So now that we saw all the cards, just a quick recap. Remember, I first went into my dashboard and into my material section. I downloaded the template, read it over so that I know what steps I'm dealing with, what type of information I need to get. And what you can do is first try to download the materials from here, the material section, in this case, the ones that go with module 1, Clover. You might have enough information right then and there to fill in your entire lesson, or you might want to go to MyMax so you can see every single screen that the students might get, and then you'll get the same examples that they get. Remember that you can also come up to a hybrid kind of middle point where you take the lesson, you take our software, and you kind of merge it, but also make it your own by adding additional exercises, by taking things out, by presenting things in a different way, by adding words that are easier, by adding words that are harder. Remember, what we want to give you is the tools where you'll understand the strategy, you'll understand the software, and you'll be able to adapt it to make it work for your students and their needs. So I think that's all that I have to say for today. I don't see that there's any additional questions on the chat box. So remember, you can always write me. Usually it happens that when we finish the webinar, people come up with questions and they write me. So feel free to write me along the way. I'm here to help you guys through the implementation. Other than that, I'll let you guys go. Have a good rest of the day, and I'll send you the recording tomorrow. Bye-bye.